healthy for the offspring. Secretions from the prostate gland are going to make up about 25 to 30% of your semen. And of course, because we have the ability to help production of ATP, it's going to increase sperm motility and viability. So there's our prostate gland wrapping around the prostatic urethra. So both the prostate gland and the common ejaculatory dump into the prostatic urethra above the external urethral sphincter. Then we have the Cowper's glands. Again, Cowper's gland, also called vulvourethral gland. Sometimes it has a hyphen, sometimes it doesn't. I guess it depends on the mood. So they're about pea size. They are the smallest of the male glands. And they're going to secrete an alkaline substance that's going to protect the sperm, just like the seminal vesicles. The difference is this is going to protect the sperm against the male's system versus the female system. And that's because, again, when we urinate, urine is often acidic, right?
Yes.
Yes, the answer is yes. Awkward. It's like we just had it on a test or something. So again, 4 to 8 on the pH scale. So if you urinate and then ejaculate quickly after that, the acidity of the urethra could kill the sperm before they leave the male. So we want to make sure that the male ductwork is safe, just like we want to make sure the female landing site is safe. So we're going to have this secreted a little bit before everybody else to wash out the rest of the membranous urethra or the penile urethra, and of course neutralize any acidity that might be lurking there. So it's going to help lubricate the inside so nobody gets stuck or damaged on the way out, and make sure that we neutralize. So this guy's a clear, kind of a thick mucousy kind of material that drains into the membranous urethra as it joins the penile urethra. This one is going to drain in below the external urethral sphincter. So keeping the sphincter closed will not affect the drainage of this fluid. So sometimes this is referred to as pre-ejaculate, or on the street, the pre-cum. So as soon as a guy gets aroused, this is going to start production to clear out the ductwork and prepare for the rest of the guys to show up, so to speak. Now these, again, this mucus is going to help lubricate the end of the penis, the lining of the urethra, again, making sure nobody gets damaged on the way out. Now, occasionally you'll find some active sperm. Again, when a male ejaculates, he doesn't clear the ductwork completely. Any residue that's left in the urethra, if those sperm can make it to or hang out around the vulvourethral gland, they can stay there. It's a nice little safe environment for them. So if you were to then expose yourself to a female through a sexual encounter, I'm trying to make it not sound so creepy. It's like, when you expose yourself to female, don't do that. It's illegal. Okay? But again, those little spermies can live in the Cowper's gland for a little while, so a few days or so. So this is how a male can impregnate a female, even if he withdraws, even if he doesn't complete. Basically, if a penis can stare a vagina, you can have babies. If there's any kind of fluid exchange, because you can have some active sperm within that Cowper's fluid. So as soon as that fluid comes out, that sperm can flush the system and then impregnate that female. And of course, you don't even have to make it in the female. You just have to get it somewhere around the opening, and if any of it washes upstream. So again, keep the penises away from the vaginas if you don't want to have children, right? Yes, cross your legs, no kids will happen. Okay. So there's our Cowper's glands. Again, they're called vulvourethral glands because they're at the bulb, or the back part of the penis, dumping into that urethra right at where that bulb structure is located. So we've been talking about it, might as well talk about it. So sperm, if you've ever seen a tadpole, you know pretty much what a sperm looks like. It looks like just without the eyeballs. Or if you've watched Look Who's Talking, remember that back in the day? Memories. All right, so it was a movie back when John Travolta was skinny and Chrissy Alley was skinny and everybody was popular. Bruce Willis was the sperm and eventually the baby's voice. Anywho, they put fertilization to the soundtrack of a Beach Boys song. So anytime you listen to Beach Boys, I just think of fertilization. But feel free to look that one up. But they do a pretty good, accurate representation of fertilization. So the drop off of sperm and letting them get to where they need to go, kind of thing.
What was that name?
Look Who's Talking. Bless you. Thank you. There was also Look Who's Talking too. That one had Roseanne Barr when she was still popular before she offended everybody. Okay, back in the day, she offended everybody the first time by really badly singing the national anthem. And then she just kept breathing, and that was just horrible. All right. So parts of our sperm, we start off with the head of the sperm. The head of the sperm is going to contain the nucleus. Sometimes it's referred to as the male pronucleus because this is his genetic contribution to the next generation. This is also going to have what's called an acrosomal cap. Sometimes you'll see it just called an acrosome. This is an organelle that, again, is unique to the sperm. That is going to have enzymes essential for fertilization. It's not like the egg's just going to let them walk on in. They have to breach security. And in order to do that, they have to eat through the follicular fluid that's protecting and surrounding the egg. And these enzymes are going to help do that. The middle piece is going to, again, attach to the head via the neck. And this is where all the mitochondria are. So we actually line up all the mitochondria at the base of the flagella or the tail, so we can produce lots and lots of ATP so we can swim faster. So they kind of line up like rowers on a boat. Okay, so very Roman infantry kind of thing. And then, of course, the tail. The tail is the only flagellum found in the human body. So if you've had micro, there's 3 different ways cells can move about. Cilia, which we talked about, we have it in the nasal cavity, lots of different areas that creates flow. And then flagella allow things to swim a little bit faster. They're going to use so the only one we find in the human body is with this part, with that swim. And of course, they've lost everything else. They don't need all the extra stuff like Golgi complexes and endoplasmic reticulum because they're not making proteins or releasing anything, or they're built for speed because, again, we have one winner and everybody else dies. So you want to be the fastest, lightest sperm to get to where you need to go. So they're so concerned with lightening up the load, they don't carry energy with them. So they have to absorb it from, again, that seminal fluid. So the citric acid in the seminal fluid, the fructose in the seminal fluid, that's going to provide them all the sugars and stuff they need to fuel the swim upstream. Well, there's our little spermies. So again, we've got the head, which is mostly a nucleus, and the acrosome or acrosomal cap. So that's going to be that organelle that holds on to the enzymes to release when it's time to invade around the female. You've got the mid piece with all the mitochondria lined up at the base of that flagella, the axoneme, which is kind of the twisting rod of the flagella. And then you've got the tail past that point. They just shortened it to make the picture fit. So during that spermiogenesis, we have to build all those structures, build the flagella, lighten up the load, get rid of any excess cytoplasm, organelles, and such, and then end up with that mature sperm. It takes a little while to get from that spermatid to that spermazoa ready to fertilize. So semen is a mixture of sperm plus the secretions of the prostate gland, Cowper's gland, and seminal vesicles. On average, a male's ejaculate is going to have about 3 to 5 milliliters of fluid, so not a whole heck of a lot. And each one of those milliliters is going to have about 20 to 100 million sperm. Okay, so we can have upwards of 500 billion sperm dropped off if you're very viable and ready to go. Now, of course, as we mentioned yesterday, when you have a vasectomy, you tie off and prevent the sperm from getting out, but you're still producing the fluid. So when we look at it, we don't change the name. Nobody wants to go around, oh, I'm packing semen light today. But we still call it semen. It just doesn't have the sperm in it after you've been, let's say vaccinated, that's not the right word, once you've had the vasectomy. So seminal fluid, again, pH is 7.2 to 7.7, slightly alkaline to neutralize the acidity of that female tract. Okay. And the job of the penis is to drop off the sperm to the vagina. So clinical issues the males might face. The first one we have is infertility. Some people will say sterility. Technically, these are 2 different conditions. One has treatment options, one is permanent. So infertility is the inability to fertilize an egg. Okay? For some reason, that male is not able to either produce enough sperm or put the sperm where it needs to go, or the sperm are defective, some reason why that egg cannot get fertilized. Sterility means you're sterile. You can't fertilize an egg because you don't have anything. So when you have a vasectomy, you're not infertile. No fertility treatment is going to help you. You have sterility. Or if you get castrated, because I don't know why, you would be sterile, okay, because you wouldn't have any ability to fertilize an egg. So sperm counts less than 20 million per milliliter is not sufficient enough to get to that egg. Again, you're dropping off these sperm and they have to swim upstream. It's a very long, arduous journey, and a lot of the sperm get lost. It's just like whenever you have a battle, a lot of military get killed off during that battle. So if you only have 5 guys, you're not going to do a good job of defending your country. Usually our standing army has to be much more than 5 guys, right? Yeah, 5 guys could not invade Africa. The Lions would get them. So you have to have lots and lots of troops on the field in the drop-off zone so they can get to where they need to go and be successful. So 60 million to 100 million minimum are necessary to fertilize that egg because the vast majority are going to get lost and going to die. So why do we need those large numbers? One, many sperm are destroyed at drop-off. The acidity of the vagina is 3.8. So that's just barely above stomach acid acidity. It's very vicious down there. So that alone kills off a whole lot of them. Even though they have seminal fluid to help neutralize the acids, you're still going to have a lot lost that way. And of course, now they have to swim upstream. And these little guys, one, can't see. They don't have eyes because cells don't have eyes. They don't have flashlights. They don't have maps. They just start swimming and hope for the best. Okay, so I'm sure some of them swim the wrong way. So those are the stupid ones. You don't want them having children. So of course, they're going to have to swim upstream. And it's a long trip. It takes 6 inches to go from drop off to the end of the fallopian tube, which doesn't sound like a lot. But if you're the smallest cell in the human body, 6 inches is quite far for that little teeny tiny microscopic guy to swim upstream to. Now, sometimes, again, we can help them out on the female side of things. So again, if a female has that orgasm, those vaginal contractions and uterine contractions with the orgasm can help draw sperm into the uterus. The uterus is more alkaline, a safer environment that doesn't kill the sperm, so we want to get them there. If a female has recently ovulated, the consistency of her uterine lining changes. So females might notice they have a little bit more discharge right around ovulation in the second part of their ovarian cycle. That's because those glands within the endometrial lining start producing a lot of mucus. This mucus, one, helps the sperm to swim upstream a little bit easier because it gives them something smoother to swim against. It's like swimming against water versus swimming against jello, right? Water is easier to swim in. So by having that mucus, it's going to make the environment easier to navigate. And of course, it's going to make it a nice squishy environment for a fertilized egg to land and burrow in. So by changing the consistency of the uterine lining, that's also going to help promote fertilization, both with the traversing of the sperm as well as implantation of that egg. Now, once we get to, of course, the top, you've got a choice, left one or right one, left oviduct or right oviduct. Only one of them is going to have an egg, so I'm sure half of them picked the wrong one and they just die. So then they have to get to location. If they make it to the egg, as I mentioned, she's not just going to welcome them with open arms. She's got shields up. So she is covered by follicular fluid. Now, this follicular fluid protects the egg against a bacteria or anything else in the body, but it also makes the egg a bigger target for the fimbriae to bring in because you have to draw in that egg into the oviduct. So this follicular fluid is filled with lots of proteins. It's basically like a big mucus ball around the outside of that cell. So in that acrosomal cap, they're going to have enzymes to break down those proteins. We're going to have hyaluronidases, breaks down hyaluron. That's one of those chemicals we see in connective tissues or in your beauty products. You can get hyaluron in your facial cream. You also have proteinases to break down the proteins. So you're going to be able to eat away at that surrounding fluid until we can breach the security, get to the cell membrane of the egg and get in. Now, of course, one little sperm can't produce enough enzymes to do the job. They have to work together. So you need several sperm releasing large amounts of their enzymes in order to eat its way through. It's just like back in the day, if you were to lay siege to a castle, it takes the entire army to breach the castle wall, but only one guy gets to be king at the end of the battle. Okay, so they all have to work together, and whoever's the strongest gets through first and fertilizes that egg. Impotence or erectile dysfunction. Unfortunately, we hear a lot about this because it's big business, right? It's all the weird commercials with the creepy guys smiling a little bit too much and all the innuendos in the backgrounds and stuff like that. It's driving me nuts. Like, oh, look, he hit a goal. Like, wow. Thanks, that was vague at everything. So when you have impotence or erectile dysfunction, this is inability of an adult male to ejaculate. So they cannot attain an erection, hold an erection long enough to complete the sexual act and drop off the sperm. And again, that's the purpose of sex, is to drop off the sperm so you can fertilize the female. So if you can't do that, you're not doing your job as a man. you've got to be able to fertilize. You've got to be able to get to that next step. So when a male becomes aroused, you have to be in the parasympathetic division. You have to be relaxed. If you're stressed out, it's very hard to, enjoy life. The nerves of the penis are going to release nitric oxide. Okay, so they release no, which is why sex is confusing, right? It starts with no. Okay, figures. So this nitric oxide, again, is the same stuff that we see in laughing gas. This is the same stuff that's in NOS energy drinks. And this is how NOS energy drinks work, just like how this works in the penis. What happens is nitric oxide is going to activate cyclic GMP because, again, it is one of those neuromodulator acting chemicals. We learned about neuromodulators in A&P2. So this enzyme will cause the smooth muscles in the blood vessels to relax. And of course, when they relax, they're going to dilate. That allows blood to rush to the area. And when you have the relaxing of the arteries going in and the veins going out, both of those are going to dilate. They're both going to become engorged with blood. That's going to fill the corpus spongiosum, corpus cavernosum with that material, and it's going to cause an erection. And this is, again, how NOS energy drink is supposed to work. By relaxing the smooth muscles of your blood vessels, it allows more blood going to your muscles or to your brain, allowing more oxygen and more energy. And of course, as we learned, you can have your nitroglycerin to help relieve angina pectoris. It does the same thing, right? It relaxes the smooth muscles of the blood vessels of the coronary arteries to help provide oxygen to the heart, so it gets rid of its ischemic issues, its heart pains. So you can move on with your life. This is what Viagra does. And as we mentioned back in the heart chapter, Viagra started off as a heart medication, and a lot of the male patients reported this as a side effect, and they decided they would make way more money with a pill for erectile dysfunction than they would for a pill for heart. Because again, at that point in time, there was lots of heart medications. There were not any erectile dysfunction medication. So nobody sought out to fix that problem for the guys. It was just a happy accident for the drug makers and then the guys and all that kind of stuff. Cancers. Okay, so when we look at cancer rates, they will vary between males and females. So lung and bronchus cancer, leading cause of death from cancer in males, is going to account for 31% of cancer deaths each year. Then we have prostate cancer. Obviously, this one is unique to males. It is the second leading cause of death from cancers at 11%. So yes, second leading cause of death, but it's only 11% of cancer deaths. It's dropped drastically. The amount of guys who die from prostate cancer each year is about equivalent to the amount of people who die of flu. Okay, so it sounds traumatic, second leading cause. There's not really huge numbers that are doing it. And considering how many guys actually get it, those are really good numbers. It's on the conservative side, estimated 50% of males over the age of 50 will get prostate cancer. So when you have half of the male population getting this cancer and only 11% cancer deaths, those are actually very good odds mathematically. And again, the reason why success rates are there is, one, it's a very slow growing cancer. Okay, so most of the time, guys that get it don't even know they have it because it's slow and stays pretty small for the most part. Very rarely metastasizes in a lot of the guys. This cancer is also linked to testosterone levels because testosterone is going to help this cancer to be more successful. And as guys age, they produce less testosterone, so less fuel for the fire for that prostate cancer. Now, today that we have a lot more testosterone supplements and you have all these, former athletes pushing pills to make you feel more manly in the gym or whatever, that will be something interesting to see in another 10 years if prostate cancer levels go up. Because if you supplement and give yourself more testosterone, if you have low levels, that prevents this from growing too much. So if you have higher levels, it might encourage the growth. One of the ways that they treat prostate cancer in the very early stages is either giving them testosterone blocking medications or giving them female hormones. And of course, crazy chicks would definitely kill anything. But basically femaleness is going to be a good counter issue with the prostate gland. So if we give them LH blocking, interstitial cell stimulating hormone blocking medication to stop testosterone and drop that production, that's going to help this cancer. And of course, you can give them some small amounts of estrogen, not enough to be girly, but enough to suppress the guy growth. So again, testosterone can be a big problem if you're on a lot of those supplements. And of course, if that doesn't work, you can do chemotherapy, you can do radiation treatments. That's usually in the latter stages when it gets so big that you can't pee properly and all those issues. They actually make these little radioactive BBs that they'll just insert into the prostate gland that will just kind of radiate the area without having to go into the doctor frequently, and that's enough to take care of it. Now, they have shown in studies, again, 50% of males are going to get this. There have been some other studies that indicate the rates are actually much higher. So they've done a few cadaver studies where they've had autopsies of males, and they had the cause of death for that male. And in many of those males, upwards of 65% actually had prostate cancer that did not contribute to the death, did not affect it. And some of them never had it diagnosed because it was so small. So numbers might actually be higher. And of course, you have to figure in all the guys who don't get checked for prostate cancer because it's a little bit of an awkward checkpoint, right? Yeah, you got to go back door entrance. So it's one of those things that some guys just don't want it. I'll just die. So it just depends on the dude. And again, this is why they do the blood testing for PSA. So whenever you have prostate cancer, you have excess prostate growth, you produce more PSA. So they'll do the blood test first, and then they'll do the prostate exam to confirm or deny if there is the presence of the cancers. Colorectal cancer, third leading cause of cancer deaths at 10%. Then we have pancreatic cancer, fourth leading cause at 5%. And then we have testicular cancer. Testicular cancer is actually the most common cancer in males between 20 and 35. Now, we don't see a lot of cancer in young people because, again, they're young, they're fit, they're healthy. The problem is testicular cancer is caused by excessive testosterone, and guys usually have a lot of testosterone in their 20s. Okay, so they're so aggressive. So it's one of those things, they do have more chances of this in younger men than in older guys. Now, the good news is it is one of the easiest cancers to cure. Okay, so it's like right there with a skin cancer. It's very easy to cure because worst comes to worst, you remove it. Now, again, most guys don't be like, dude, don't take my testicle. But they can if necessary. And as we talked about, because of the raphe, because all those layers of connective tissues, they're isolated. So cancer of one testicle can't spread directly to the other. It would have to come up the ductworks, through and back down and around. So that would take a big effort on the part of cancer. So usually it's only one side that's affected, and it responds very well to chemotherapy, radiation, and of course, they can do removal. And if they do remove, it doesn't ruin the guy's life. They still have fertility capabilities. They may have to, monitor if they want to have children, but usually we just see slightly lower sperm counts in males that have one testicle versus two. And if you're worried about being lopsided or something, they do make fake ones to put in. Ironically, they started making, it's not false testicles, testicle implants. They started making them for dogs because some people have more money than sense, and they were worried about after their dogs got fixed that they had sad sack syndrome, and then some people couldn't tell that they had a boy dog versus a girl dog. I don't know, some people have too much money. You're like, I don't sit around going, you know what would make his life complete? If he was licking a full scrotum instead of a flat one because he's fixed. Dogs, anywho. But they do make them all the way from Chihuahua size to Great Dane if you want your male dog to still feel intact. Honestly, spend your money on something worth something. But in case you care, for human males, they use beagle. Because that's apparently just the right size to replace a human testicle is a beagle. So next time you see a beagle, little giggles, right? You'll see a lot of beagles. They're loud, that's why, right? They bay. Questions about dudes? Moving on to chicks, man. So ovaries. Unlike the male reproductive system, there is no direct contact between the primary organ and the ductwork. So again, in the guys, the testis drains directly into the epididymis, into the vas deferens, common ejaculatory, to the urethra, and then out. So there's nowhere to lose sperm. Once they're in the chute, they're going to have this conveyor belt all the way out. Now with the females, their ovary is not in direct contact to the oviduct, so you could actually pull them apart. This can be problematic for many reasons. One, when the female ovulates, the fimbriae have to actively catch the egg. There is a chance that the egg floats off into the pelvic cavity. This is how you can get some ectopic pregnancies on the outside of the uterus or in the lining of the digestive system and such, because it just gets shot off into space. And if the fimbriae can't catch it in time, it just floats away, and it can either, unfortunately, if you got a really good sperm, he's like, it's fine. It could get fertilized, or it just disappears and gets reabsorbed by the body. Once we get it in, again, we can then send it through the ductwork and it gets to where it needs to go. Another problem is if you have a disease with the gap being there, that disease can jump. So again, if a guy gets an STD, it's isolated in the reproductive system or urinary system, because all that you do is end up at the testicle and be done. With that female, once it gets to the fallopian tube, it could actually spread to the digestive system, the inside of the pelvic cavity. It can cause massive destruction within the female body. So unfortunately, we have that design fault where we could lose our reproductive viability. The egg gets shot into space, and it makes us more vulnerable for disease spreading out of the reproductive system into other adjacent systems. So that can obviously be problematic for the female. So there it is, and we have our little funny looking tongs that are showing you there's no direct connection there. They just kind of suspend above and hope to catch the egg whenever it's time for ovulation. So ovaries, after puberty, this is where we're going to have the site of the maturation of the sex cells, or ova. This process is called oogenesis. Double O always means egg. So you can always remember, it's like, uh-oh, eggs. Right, so those little guys. Now, oogenesis actually begins before birth, so very different from males. Males don't start anything till puberty. Now, with females, they're going to start their activities while they're still inside of mom. So the mitosis is all going to happen during fetal development, and all the way up through meiosis 1 is going to happen within fetal development. So the oogonia, again, those are the stem cells produced through mitosis, are going to happen very early on, almost right after she decides that she's female and not male. That's going to start that mitotic process. And again, those primary oocytes are going to go all the way through meiosis 1, and then we're going to stall out. We're going to halt at the end of meiosis 1. And meiosis 1 for the females is going to happen between months 3 and 7 of fetal development. So about the time mom realizes she's carrying a girl, her girl is almost done producing all the eggs she will ever have. So this can also be problematic. If you're pregnant with a boy child and you have a wild, crazy weekend, you can mess up your son, but it's not going to mess up your grandkids. If you are carrying a female child and you go have a wild, crazy weekend, not only can it mess up your female child, but it can also mess up your grandchildren. Okay? So it's kind of crazy how far back in the day female issues can start. It's like you're not even out yet and you're having problems or possibility of those problems. So it's kind of kooky. Now we're going to stall at the end of our meiosis 1 until we hit puberty. Okay, so it just depends. Those eggs might be sitting on the shelf for quite a long time. And of course, they're sitting on the shelf until they come out of storage to be ovulated. So if you're 40, that egg that you release is 40 years old plus a few months. This is why we see more genetic defects caused by females than by males. Because with males, their sperm might be 3 or 4 months old, maybe 7 months at max. That female egg has been on the shelf for 40 years. And if you've ever put anything into storage and pulled it out a few years later, it's not always as great as it used to be. It's like kind of like candles. Put them in the storeroom once and they come back all like, they're not going to look good. So we start to see more issues with Down syndrome as we get older. We start to see more genetic defects, more problems with pregnancies, miscarriages, and such as we get older, because the eggs are old. And the longer they sit there, the more likely of a defect happening. They may not complete secondary meiosis properly and divide like they're supposed to. So that's why they encourage women to have children while they're young. And it's not because they want you at home pregnant, barefoot, having kids and not have a career. It's because that's when your eggs are good and fresh. If you're 40, you're getting the bottom of the barrel and they've been there for quite a while. So you're going to have more likelihood of problems with fertility, more problems with genetic defects, more problems with pregnancy problems, and possibly defects within those babies. So that's why they encourage young women. It's not a biased thing. We got to use it while it's fresh thing. Okay? Now, not all of them are survived. Some of them are just going to rot away, fall apart. So roughly around the time a baby girl is born, she only has about 2 million primordial follicles, 2 million opportunities for babies. That sounds like a lot, but that's 2 million for her entire life. In guys, that's 1 billion a day. Okay, so you can already see why females are the limited sex. We start off with way fewer opportunities. And of course, those 2 millions are going to start breaking down over time. So by the time she hits puberty, by the time she's 13, she's gone from 2 million primordial follicles down to 400,000. So we lose about 3/4 of our reproductive possibilities by the time we start reproducing. Yes?
So in certain contraceptives, like when it stops the menstrual cycle, does that stop that egg from coming out at that time, or?
So if it stops the menstrual cycle, it stops ovulation,
Okay.
because that's the only way to stop the menstrual cycle. So ironically, back in the day, women would go through menopause around their 40s, early 50s. Okay, now women are going through menopause late 50s, early 60s, because if you take birth control, each month you're on birth control, you don't ovulate, you don't go through the process of egg production, more eggs stay in storage. So we're actually seeing now that birth control is ready and available and used quite frequently. Women are ovulating for longer periods, having periods for longer periods. So instead of going through menopause in your 40s like grandma did, or maybe your mother did, now you might go through menopause in your 50s. Okay, so I guess good news, you can be pregnant while you're 50. Bad news, you're pregnant while you're 50.
You're gonna break a hip.
Yeah, I was like, oh, my osteoporosis acted up as the kid came out. Yes, ma'am?
Do you still feel all those hormones that you would feel on your period when you're on a birth control, or have I just been using that as an excuse?
Your birth control gives you hormones. So what they do is they give you, instead of the normal estrogen, normal progesterone, they either keep you at estrogen right in the middle, not too high, not too low, the whole time, and you don't get progesterone into the last 3 pills. Or if you're the progesterone base, they give you progesterone so your body thinks you've already ovulated and you don't make the estrogen. So you're still having hormones, but you're not having the big cycle of hormones. They're more balanced.
Does birth control also affect the way that when it's like super hot, or like it's not even hot and you think it's hot? Does that mess with your body?
No.
It doesn't? My mom tells me, she's like, it's her birth control, it's her birth control. So it doesn't affect it?
It should stop big swings. Just like birth control should stop mood swings, because it balances your hormones instead of having spikes and stuff. That's why some women who have really severe PMS are put on birth control so they're not so crazy. Depends on how you respond to your birth control.
Yeah, because I got like, I don't know if you see mine, but I got the next one on, and like the first, she told me I was gonna be emotional like the first 6 weeks, but like, oh my god, I was like ready to like.
Yeah, and that's where you're gonna have different reactions from different females. So what one woman can tolerate, the next woman's like, mm-mm. Like, I was put on Yaz after my first kid, and I was horrible. That was my mom's like, you're a bitch. You need off of these pills. I'm like, all right. I've been on them for 3 months. She's like, nobody's gonna survive. Like, I was plotting evilness all day long. Like, my ex-husband, he took the trash out, but he didn't put a new trash bag in.
Yeah, that's it.
And that set me off.
Yeah.
So that morning, it was like, oh, that's what he did. So I didn't put a trash bag in, and the baby was still enough that we were using the drop-in liners because I was lazy and didn't want to wash bottles as much. So I decided I'm not putting a bag in. I'm not putting trash in my trash can. I'm putting it on the counter. So diapers and trash from the day and bottles. And then I sat and I waited. And it's like, he's going to come in. I'm going to let him get to right here, see if he can see the trash, and then I'm going to pounce. And I did. I planned the entire moment. And as soon as he stopped, I was like, out. And he's like, ah. It was horrible. And of course, you had that one moment of clarity. You're like, maybe you're overreacting to the fact that it was just a trash bag. Like, no, we're in it to win it. And
Yeah.
at that moment, it's like, maybe I should not be on the Yaz for the safety of society. But it's that type of hormone. It's just how your body responds to it. So some women will be on the estrogen base. Some women do better on the progesterone base, and some do better on the Yaz, which has neither estrogen or progesterone. It has a different mocktail of hormones in it. we'd be crazy. We're all different kinds of crazy, so you gotta
Mm,
pick the right medication for the crazy.
mm.
All right. We started periods early today. It's like, we just made some eggs. We haven't got to the release point yet. So the process of destruction of those eggs throughout your lifetime is known as astrasia. Again, do not name people after A&P terms. It sounds cool. It's like, my baby Astrasia and her sister Achalasia, her dog Fleeka. No, don't name. It's like, could you imagine those poor kids? My name means the destruction and rotting of eggs.
Ooh.
Oh, this is so pretty. All right, so don't do that. And this isn't going to just stop at puberty. The longer things sit on the shelf, the more are going to get broken down. So as you get older, you have less options, less eggs to choose from. And it's once you run out of eggs, you get about 1,000 left in the barrel, so to speak. That's when your body's like, and I'm done. I don't have enough to be viable anymore. So as mentioned, if you're on birth control and you don't ovulate those months, so if you're on birth control for 5 years, 5 times 12 plus all the eggs that you're going to pull out of storage, you may give you a little few more years of being able to be reproductively viable. So the longer you're on birth control, the lag time is going to be there for menopause. Yes.
So I heard that the Depo shot can cause like a lot of fertility issues. If you're saying that we have a lot of eggs by the time we get off because we're not dropping them, I don't know if this is just like, but I've heard it causes like a lot of miscarriages and like still you can't get pregnant easily after.
A lot of times because your body gets so used to the hormones given to you in synthetic form, it's just like any other drug. They don't make the hormones and they're not used to making the hormones. So it's going to take a few months before your ovaries are able to kick out hormones like they're supposed to do. So a lot of it isn't tied directly to ovulation. It's tied to the uterus not being prepared for that egg to implant and function properly. So just like coming off of heroin or cigarettes or alcohol, there's a withdrawal period for hormones. Oh, there she is, stockpiling those little babies all along the edges there. So you can actually pull out an ovary and count how many opportunities for ovulation she's going to have, as well as how much she's ovulated in the past. They'll leave little scar tissues and such. They don't do this for humans because nobody really cares how many times grandma ovulated in her lifetime, but they do this for deer a lot to see how healthy deer herds are. If you ever go hunting for deer and TP and Debbie goes, bring me ovaries. It's not because they're super creepy. Just trying to see the health of the herd. So here we have meiosis going through. So again, oogenesis, the oogonia are going to be producing all those stem cells through mitosis. Again, happens before you're born. We're going to go through our primary oocyte is going to go through and form that tetrad, go through meiosis 1, and then we're going to stall out until we hit puberty. Now, another big difference between the males and the female is the distribution of cellular content. Females literally put all their eggs into one basket, and that basket being an egg. So we want to have all the nutrients, all the resources in one location so that developing possible baby can survive until implantation, because they have to live on their own stored nutrients until they hook up and make a placenta, which is going to take a little while to do, basically 9 weeks before it's functioning the way it should. So we have to have a lot of nutrients to survive the first 9 weeks of pregnancy and do all the things it's got to do. So we're going to put all of our nutrients into one big egg or the secondary oocyte. The little guy that's left over is basically a nucleus with the genetic material. That's your first polar body. That's trash. They're going to throw it away. Now, sometimes if you're younger, some of those polar bodies might go through the next division. By the time you're older, those guys have all just disappeared and broken down. Then once we've gone through puberty, we'll start pulling out those secondary oocytes that are already haploid, and we're going to make those secondary oocytes finish meiosis 2, where we'll end up with that ovum, that egg that is ready to be fertilized, and that second polar body. So with guys, every time we go through the process of spermatogenesis, you get 4 viable sperm. When you go through the process of oogenesis, you get 1 viable egg and 3 polar bodies that are trash. Okay, so just the production of gametes is going to limit female opportunities compared to the male opportunities. And then, of course, we have less to begin with. So this is why females are always the limiting sex. It takes more energy to make an egg than it does to make a sperm. Sperm are very cheap energy-wise. Okay. So ovaries, other than making your eggs, are going to make your hormones, again, estrogens and progesterones. Our most abundant estrogen is estradiol, but there's estrogen, estradiol, all kinds of the ester ones. Again, Esther means female. So if you name your daughter Esther from the Bible, her name literally translates to girl. So it's like, which, I'm a girl, Esther. Okay, so this little guy, and of course we've got progesterone. These hormones tag team. So we're gonna make estrogen for half of the month, and they're gonna make progesterone for half of the month, and then we'll switch back and forth. And they're going to help the development of the female organs, making you girly. So the internal organs, the fallopian tubes, the uterus, especially the uterine lining, the vagina, and all those secondary sexual characteristics that we associate with being female. Now, if you remove the ovaries, I hate saying that word because I always want to say Oompa Loompa, and my brain does not like to say this word. So oomphaectomy, I did not want to do it again. But it starts with the oof, remove the ovaries. So eggs. Fallopian tubes, named after Dr. Fallopian because he wasn't shy about naming stuff. Uterine tubes and oviducts, all interchangeable. So they're going to be about 13 centimeters, 5 inches long. And again, they're perched over the ovary and they're going to connect to the uterus. The end of them are going to have those little fimbriae, those little fingers that's going to help wave in and direct that egg after we've ovulated. And then lining the inside of the fallopian tube is ciliated. So we're going to have cilia to help draw the egg towards the uterus and peristaltic contractions to help draw the egg towards the uterus. So a whole bunch of waving actions to help draw the egg to the uterus so it can get to where it needs to go. So those fimbriae, those finger-like projections are what initially catches the egg that has been released. If fertilization occurs, it takes place in the distal third of the fallopian tube at the infundibulum area. So we go from the infundibulum, which is usually just the stalk connecting point, the ampulla, and the isthmus. Okay? Now, fertilization has to occur within 24 hours. At 24 hours, 1 minute, the egg's dead. Okay? So it does not have a very long life or sustainability. So this is why if people are actively trying to have children, if she's following her cycle or if she's doing the ovulation tests are either going to pick up the spike of luteinizing hormone that happens right before you ovulate or the presence of progesterone. And then you've got 24 hours to fertilize or you got to wait for a whole nother month. So it just depends on your strategy on having children. Again, frequency is going to help increase the chances of fertilization to happen within those 24 hours. After that, it's dead in the water. Okay? Now, that fertilized egg, that zygote, should arrive at the uterus about 7 days after ovulation. So again, sometimes you'll have females who's like, I was so drunk when I think I got pregnant. Do you think that affected the baby? No, they don't even make it to the uterus for 7 days. So they are self-sustaining for about the first 2 weeks until you've missed a period. At that point, now it's tapped into your body. So you can do all kinds of crazy party stuff for those 2 weeks and it's not going to affect the baby. Not that I'm telling you to go out and get rip-roaring drunk and high and go crazy, but you're not going to affect that baby until it hooks up to the maternal systems and starts cycling off of mom. So you don't have to worry about day of issues.
Wouldn't the, like most drugs stay in your system for like 30 days depending on how you do it though, so that would affect it once it?
Yeah, it depends on activity. Like if you were drunk, that's not going to affect because that should go through the system in 2 weeks or so. And of course, you'll have dissipation. So the initial day, you have way more in your system than day 15. Of course, don't do drugs. You shouldn't. They're not good for you. They make you stupid, right?
So like people who smoke when they're pregnant?
It goes over. Drink when you're pregnant, goes over. Also, if you're breastfeeding. And that's one of the things is not stressed enough because the militant milkers are, they get you as soon as you get pregnant. They're like, you got to have breastfeed. You got to, feed them from your boobs. You got to really watch your diet. One hit from a joint will stay in your system in your breast milk for 7 days. Unfortunately, my neighbor's kids are really stupid because their mama was high a lot. She's like, my baby never cries. Your baby is so stoned. That kid barely can function. He's gonna, they're all in special ed. But it's okay because marijuana doesn't hurt you. But yeah, so anything's good cross. So if you smoke or drink or even have caffeine when you're breastfeeding, that gets to your kid. So you actually have to limit your corn if you breastfeed because the yellow from the corn is going to cross over. You make your kid have a slight case of So they'll turn your kid orange. So you actually have to eat and conduct yourself just as if you were pregnant if you're breastfeeding, because all those things that can affect your kid while you're pregnant can also affect the breast milk.
Is it true that if you have like a high, if you eat a lot of food, that can make your breast milk thin and firm? Is that true?
I've never color-coded breast milk before. But your diet does affect the content of your milk. So anything that changes the content of your milk could cause issues. That's why I put my kids on formula, so I could drink all the caffeinated beverages I wanted and eat corn. And that way my kids could have the proper nutrition, right? Right. Because they say breast is best, that's just because it comes out of your body. It doesn't mean you make good breast milk. Some women can't make good breast milk. Their babies starve to death on breast milk because they don't produce enough nutrients in it, or they dry up too soon, stuff like that. So formulas, you know exactly what they're eating and how much they're eating versus my kid got half a boob for lunch. Well, how much was that? I don't know. Half a boob. Okay, so that's my opinion. If you want to breastfeed, that's your opinion. That's your life. Hey, look at that. Fimbriae, opposite end of the breast. So there's our infundibulum where ovulate. Look, she's ovulated. Get there, guy, get there. So again, we should have fertilization here, and then by the time we get to this area, we'll start to implant and have a baby. Speak of the devil, the uterus. It's about 7.5 centimeters by 5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters, or 3.5 inches by 2 inches by 1 inch. So it's actually a very small little guy causing all those problems. If you've seen the IUD, which I find funny that an IUD is both a birth control measure and something that will blow you up on the side of the road. Ironic, isn't it? But anyway, if you've seen one of those little T guys that they stick in your uterus so you don't get pregnant, that's the inside space of your uterus. So that's how big the inside is. So let you know how tiny that organ is that causes all the problems that we have to deal with. So that little guy. Now the uterus is about 8.5 on the pH scale, so slightly alkaline, safer for the little spermies if they've made it this far. It is designed to hold that fertilized egg sustained, nourished for the 266 days of pregnancy. So you can see why we use the term 3 trimesters, because that sounds so much better than 266 days. That's a long time. At least we're not elephants, right? 2 years. Oh gosh, that is horrible. Okay. Now, obviously, when the pregnancy is done, it's going to expel the baby, expel the placenta, and of course, if you don't have pregnancies, it's going to help expel the uterine lining so you can have your period. Now, uteri come in 2 positions in the body. We have anteflexion, that's where it bends anteriorly over the bladder. That's the normal, that's 80% of females are anteflex. So that's what our models are in lab. The uterus is kind of hovering over the bladder like it's, taunting it or something. Now, some women are retroflex, and remember, retro means past or back, so it tilts back away from the bladder. So some are just mildly retroflex, where it's almost straight up and down. Some are severely retroflex, where it almost lays on your rectum instead of laying over your bladder. So your degree of retroflexion will vary by female. And this is something your OBGYN or your gynecologist can feel for. When you have your pelvic exam and they're making sure everything's where it should be, they'll know the angle that your uterus sits, because it's never straight up and down like it's not like this in the body. Some of them are like this, some of them like this, some of them like this. They move, all right? So your angle, again, isn't going to matter greatly, but it can affect sexual positioning and so forth. So the angle at which your uterus sits, how it aligns can help it feel better or worse during that sexual encounter. So what, again, causes an orgasm in one woman won't cause an orgasm in another because her uterus is different. So it's kind of like if she's tilted this way and you're tapping over here, she's like, no, redirect. You got to hit the right spots in order for it to feel okay. If you're retroflexed, when you get pregnant, it will fall forward around month 3 because the pregnancy is so heavy, even though it's still tiny at this point, it's heavy enough to make the uterus fall forward. So women who are retroflex might notice around month 3, they have the urge to pee all the time. They're like, why am I peeing? The baby's not that big. Why do I gotta pee? You're not used to the uterus hovering over your bladder like a normal person. So it just makes you bladder anxious, so you pee more often. Now, once you have the baby, you go back to your original position. So if you're retroflex, it's not like one pregnancy is going to straighten you up. You're going to go back to being retroflex. And again, only 20% of women are retroflex. Now, they used to think the retroflex women had a harder time getting pregnant because the uterus is at a different angle. So a lot of doctors are like, oh, those sperm are going to have to U-turn to get to your eggs, so you're going to have problems with pregnancies. They have found over time that doesn't matter. Okay? What actually can be problematic is certain sexual positions, because when you have sex, the uterus moves. She's going to extend, well, the vagina is going to extend whenever she's aroused. That way she can accommodate a penis, and the uterus is going to move so it's out of the way so it doesn't get damaged. So it tilts around during sex, and then it goes back to the original position. Now, if you are retroflexed, it's going to hit stuff that it normally shouldn't. So certain positions, usually backwards ones, so doggy style or reverse cowgirl or anything you're not looking at her face, is going to be uncomfortable for a woman who is retroflex, where in a anti-flex woman, it might feel okay. And it depends, again, on your tilt. Some women could actually have tearing if you go backwards. So some women, it might just be mildly uncomfortable. Others, it feels like you're being gutted like a pumpkin. And in some cases, depending on the male's size and angle, he can actually tear some of those ligaments holding the uterus in place, causing permanent damage to the uterus. And you're more likely to have that if you're retroflexed than anti-flexed. Okay, so this is why, again, we're adults. Communication is important. If it don't feel good, say something, because you don't want anything getting ripped and you have to go get it fixed at the doctor's office and stuff. And of course, obviously, if it doesn't feel good, you're not going to enjoy your time with the person. Okay? So unless you're just there to be a breeder, most people want to have something useful happen. Oh, there she is, causing problems. So there's the fundus, there's the body, there's the cervix of the uterus. Look at that. I found a picture for you guys. Do you know what I had to do? I had to search retroflex uterus. Do you know what comes up when you search that? Not retroflex uteruses. Just saying, it's like, finally, all the way down the page, there was something that was not porn related. So again, do not search stuff from this chapter on public computers unless you are willing to take the hit. They're like, what are you looking for? A&P. So here's your normal uterus. Looks just like the pictures in the book with the uterus hanging out over the bladder. Here's a retroflex uterus. Again, sometimes it's called a tilted or a tipped uterus. So instead of tilting forward, it tilts back. So here she is hanging back here. And again, some women, they experience more back cramps versus forward cramps when they have their period. They may be more susceptible to period poops than the normal woman, but every woman can get period poops. It's just everybody wanting to be excited about having a period. So there's your little tipped guy. So again, during certain sexual positioning, it's going to really hit on some of those things, and it's going to be kind of painful. And it's going to pull on the ligaments differently because the angle will be different. So it's going to be a little bit more painful.
Does that affect the rectum?
Again, that's part of the pain if you are in the wrong angle because it's pressing into the rectum, and then that guy has to move out of the way. Not comfortable. But other than that, they used to think it, again, they haven't found that it causes issues with pregnancies. So women, you don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, I'm retroflex, I'm never going to have children. No, you can still have them.
Is it because it like postpartum?
That, and again, as long as you're on your back and they're going to where they're going to, it's not like this drastic turn that the sperm have to make. They used to coach that. My gynecologist, he's like, oh, you're going to have problems getting pregnant. Oh yeah, because I have lazy ovaries, not because my uterus is stupid. Freaking ovaries. And uteri and female parts. Oh, look at the layers of the uterus. Who also sucks? All right. So again, we have the same beginning words, the same suffix, endo, myo, and peri that we saw with the heart, but we've got it endometrium. Metrium means uterus. So don't go, oh, what's this layer? Myocardium. No, you're not going to get credit for that because I'm not going to point to your heart. I'm going to point to your uterus. So again, endometrium, inner lining of the uterus, myometrium, this is where we have the smooth muscle. So again, this is going to help push the baby out when you're pregnant and giving birth, or again, push the lining out whenever you're having your period. and then you have the serosa or perimetrium on the outside. Now, the endometrium has two linings to it, two sections. We have the functional layer and the basal layer, or the stratum functionalis and the stratum basale. So the stratum functionalis, this is the mucosal lining that the egg will implant into whenever you get pregnant. So it's going to be built up. For the first half, we're going to build the functional layer, and then under progesterone, the functional layer is going to become functional. The mucus glands are going to start producing, and as I mentioned, this mucus makes it easier for the sperm to swim upstream. It makes it easier for the baby to implant, giving it a nice squishy area to land and burrow in. Because again, the egg doesn't just sit on the lining of the uterus; it actually burrows in like a chigger and starts building within the endometrial lining there. Some of your medications, it's either Plan B or the morning after pill, because they actually do two different things. One of them gives you a big burst of hormones to delay ovulation. The other one actually makes the uterine lining, the functional layer, stop functioning, which makes it hard for the egg to implant. So I want to say it's Plan B that disturbs the functional layer. So even if you get pregnant, the egg can't implant, and if it can't implant, it can't signal that you're pregnant and you're going to have a period. Where the other one, I think the morning after, which is why you have to take it the morning after, is going to give you a burst of hormones so you don't ovulate, hopefully, that day, if you were close to ovulation. So sometimes they're going to work, sometimes they won't. So that's why sometimes those after measures don't work. If you didn't take them in time, or it snuck through and got fertilized, even though you just took a pill that stopped the hormone production. So this little guy is going to be shed every 28 days roughly and start over again. So this is what you lose when you have a period, is the stratum functionalis. And they're going to build and recycle based on hormone. The stratum basale, the basal layer, stays in place. So after you get rid of the stratum functionalis, the basal layer rebuilds the functionalis layer, providing a support and stability. So one of the ways some women, if they want to stop having periods, they're done, they don't want to have kids or have any more kids, if they can't afford a hysterectomy or insurance won't pay for it because it's optional, you can go through and get the stratum basale cauterized. I forget what the actual surgical term is, but basically they go in with a big red hot poker iron and they cauterize the inside of the stratum basale. If they kill and scar the stratum basale, they can't build the stratum functionalis. So even though you do ovulate, even though you may have a fertilized egg, there's nowhere for it to land because it's like turning it into asphalt. Just like a seed on asphalt is not going to grow. Pregnancy, little developing baby is not going to be able to implant into scar tissue. So you wouldn't be able to get pregnant. And of course, if you kill the stratum basale, you don't build the functional layer, so you don't have periods anymore. So this is a way to have women not have to have a period all the time, not have to worry about birth control measures because there's nowhere for it to implant and take hold. Now, they used to do this type of procedure later in a woman's life, so when she's in her 40s or something, because she's already had her family and blah, blah, blah. And of course, if you're going to naturally go through menopause in your late 50s and 60s, that burning is enough to keep you sterile for the rest of your life. Now that younger women are starting to get this earlier because they don't want to have kids and they never want to have kids, if you get a doctor that agrees with you, you can get this in your 20s if you just, really tell them how you don't like children. So we think it's a permanent form of sterilization, but again, we don't know if, it doesn't heal in 15 years, but it might heal in 30 years. So at this point in time, you could get this procedure in your 20s and be sterile until your late 40s, and then who knows, it might heal on you, just like skin might heal after a major burn after years and years. So it's up in the air. Right now, it's a way to sterilize a female, to prevent periods, to prevent pregnancies. But we don't know if you get it done earlier, is there a chance that this tissue might heal and regain functionality by the time you're in your 40s? So at this point, it says permanent, with a little asterisk with if it sits around long enough, it might fix itself. So once we see enough women doing this early enough, then we can have those comparative studies to see if it's still a permanent measure regardless of age. But right now it's permanent with little asterisks. So here's our endometrium, here's our myometrium, here's our perimetrium. So here's during menses, they're shedding off of the functional layer and getting rid of that. During the proliferative phase, the stratum basale has to rebuild the functional area. And at this point, the glands are being built, but they're not functioning, so they're not producing mucus or anything like that. And then when we get to the secretory phase, it's very poofy because all those glands activate and you get a lot of glandular material and a lot of mucus production. So if you were an egg and landed, you can burrow in real easily into this tissue because it's nice and fluffy. It's the difference between landing on pavement versus landing on a big pillow. I guess if you were jumping off of a building or something. So this one's easier to burrow into, easier to land on. And then if there is no pregnancy, we get rid of it. We kill it, start over again. Hysterectomy. So metrium means uterus, but hyster also means uterus or female. This is where the term hysterical comes from. If you're hysterical, you're apparently very womany. Women be crazy. They're hysterical. They're women-like. It's odd. Okay, so hysterectomy is removing your crazy, right? Removing your uterus. And you have different levels. So you can have a partial or total hysterectomy. That's where you remove the fundus and the body, but the cervix stays in place. So this is usually the optional thing that a woman may have if she just doesn't want to have periods, just doesn't want to get pregnant, and there's no medical reason to remove the whole thing. Now, if you have a partial hysterectomy, cervix is still in place. You still have to get pap smears every so often. You still have to get things checked out. You still get cervical cancer because the cervix is there. But it does act as an endpoint to the vagina. So that's a nice added bonus. Complete hysterectomy, whole thing. So fundus, body, cervix, no more pap smears, no more cervical exams because you don't got a cervix anymore. Don't have to worry about cervical cancer. The doctor may or may not close up the end of the vagina. So it's not like a leg warmer, it's more like a sock. And then radical hysterectomy, they're just going to gut you like a pumpkin. So all components of the uterus, fundus, body, cervix, they're going to remove your fallopian tubes, maybe the ovaries, those ligaments, so the round ligament, the broad ligament, all those guys holding things in place. If it's really bad, a little bit of the vagina is going to go along with that. These radical hysterectomies are usually due to a medical emergency issue. So you've been diagnosed with cervical cancer, we're to take everything just in case it spreads somewhere. Okay, so this is oftentimes when you have that complete because you want to make sure nothing spreads anywhere. So it could be the result of some kind of disease or something like that. Or if your doctor just wants to make sure nothing can come back and bite you later. So you can still get ovarian cancer even after a normal hysterectomy because the ovaries are still in place. So if you remove everybody, you can't get ovarian cancer, can't get uterine cancer, don't have problems with extra plumbing hanging out there. So again, medical issues or later stage hysterectomies, yes.
So if a lady has everything removed, that increases her testosterone and her estrogen levels drop.
So if ovaries are removed, her estrogen and progesterone is going to drop off, testosterone stays the same. It's like she goes through menopause. So once you remove the ovaries, it's 60-year-old women.
But the testosterone doesn't rise?
Nope, it's constant throughout your life.
Is there like a superior portion of the vagina? Would you even be able to like have sex at that point?
Yeah, it would be a tighter fit. So we'll talk about this tomorrow because we're out of time. But your vagina goes from about 3 inches to 6 inches when you're aroused. That's just like a guy goes from when he's aroused. But you're going to get bigger to accommodate the penis, so the uterus doesn't get hit. So even if you remove the superior part, you could go from 2 inches to 4 inches. So the guy would just not be able to penetrate as deeply without issues, or you could stretch it out. As we saw on Vicky, it gets stretched out as you get older. All right. Oh, there she is, the vagina. Apparently got a little overexcited. Let's go to lab and do genetics problems. A little bit of depression for you.
All right.
Yeah. You're going to get all the caffeine.
Shot in that episode.